For this first story, we're not throwing it to a website. I'm going to throw it to Eliza. Apparently, you've got something to say.
Yes, I do. So before I say what I'm about to say, I just want to let everyone know that I serve these survivors, speaking here as their survivor advocate. And to anyone that needs more information, I will be giving information at the end of this. So if survivors need to step forward, and as always, anytime I'm on a show, just know that you can reach out to the human trafficking hotline at any time. I can also give that number throughout this stream as well. So let's get it going. Tonight I might use the word allegedly at certain points. This has been advised by legal, not because I don't believe the survivors that I serve, but it's the legal way to do it. So let's get it going. This is an official press release. These are not my words. This is a survivor. As a survivor of the Tate brothers, I understand how difficult it can be to come forward and speak out about what happened to you. But when social media gives us a glimpse into the extreme harm that others cause, I feel obligated to step forward and speak out against it. If these words can prevent one woman from being an alleged victim of Andrew and Tristan Tate, it justifies the risk that I'm taking. It can be scary, overwhelming, and you may feel like you don't have anyone to turn to. If you or someone you know is a survivor, know that you are not alone and that there is help available. By coming forward together, we may be able to find justice for ourselves and prevent these perpetrators from hurting anyone else. It is a brave and important step towards healing and finding closure. I know it can be hard to take this first step, but I promise you that there are resources and people ready and available to help you through this process. Don't let fear or shame keep you from speaking out. Let this be a reminder that you deserve to be heard, to feel safe and supported. You have the absolute right to seek justice. This is a moment and an opportunity for any victim of these alleged perpetrators to stand up, and together we can recognize vulnerability as power, see the strength in numbers, and shine light on strength of every single survivor. Signed, an anonymous survivor. The second statement. This will be Survivor 2. For women who have been victimized, we didn't know the game that was being played to hurt us. We didn't know a game was being played at all. It's only after it happens and you lose that you know, whether the lover boy method or some other way. Victims know that this game of deception is used in the court of public opinion today. To the people who've made assumptions about the victims before trial, I forgive you. Sorry. I won't ask those people to change their opinion for our sake. I would just ask them to consider one thing. What if you're wrong? Is it possible? And if it is, you can wait for the court to do its job before attacking. Those who have gone about the correct legal process for justice. To all the victims out there, I know how wounded you feel. I have felt that way too. I love each and every one of you for being brave enough to move forward despite those feelings. You are loved, and know how strong you and many know how strong you have been. Signed, anonymous survivor. So if you are a survivor of Andrew Tate, Tristan Tate, or any co-conspirators in this case, I need you to visit the website ncose.com. ncose.com. You'll see a click through. It'll go straight to the legal team that's representing these two survivors. And I have a message of support from a survivor of Epstein Maxwell, Teresa J. Helm. My support, empathy, and immense respect to these courageous survivors braving through the storm and coming forward. Each of these women have the soul of a warrior and the heart of a lioness. To the to the women coming forward and speaking to you, you are changing the world and halting the vile systems of exploitation. Make no mistake, you are a hero. You speak for so many that have yet to breathe life into their words. You are taking your power back. You are returning it to where it has always belonged, within you. Justice is a journey, and I encourage you to use each footstep to imprint your fierce will. Fight back, demand accountability, drain the shame that was never yours. Whoo, that's cold. To the survivors that are currently developing your strength to take that first step of coming forward, we are suited up, and you have an army of warriors ready to lock arms with you, and that's true. Take the step, reach out. We are here to help you and build a foundation of your pathway to justice. They thought they'd bury you. Break free through the barrier of silence. Take your power back with love, respect to each of you. God bless you, Teresa J. Helm. Teresa J. Helm is now working full-time at Nicosi, and Nicosi Law will be representing the survivors, the American survivors and Western survivors. So in the Andrew Tate case.
What do we know about what Andrew Tate was doing? What do we have in terms of hard facts?
So just based off my relationship, I'm not going to speak too much about the case, but I will be posting the statements onto my Twitter account at Eliza Blue. Sorry, I cried, Tim. At Eliza Blue, at ELIZABLEU. I'll be putting them there. And then survivors, if you missed the website to reach out, you can reach out there. What we know is that there are some folks that want to get some justice. That's what we know. That's what I know.
So just to clarify that these are two victims that are coming forward, but they're choosing to remain anonymous.
And I'll tell you why.
And I heard kind of two words here: trafficking and lover boy.
Yeah.
Are those the main accusations? And are they suing for damages, or are they suing to get them arrested? So
really quickly, the survivors are remaining anonymous, and this was like a last-minute decision today because of fear. And fear as a result of the legal team is afraid for their safety. And that's where we're at. I'm afraid
in the
for
United
my
States?
own safety. I'm afraid for my own safety, even sitting here speaking about this. So that's where we're at with it. So we need to make sure before those survivors step forward, if and when they choose, because it's always up to the survivor. You can be a part of a lawsuit and be a Jane or John Doe, right? But if and when these survivors decide to step forward, we need to make sure that they are safe. And this goes to any survivor out there that's listening. If you decide to step forward in this case, either as a Jane Doe or whatever.
But so this is a monetary lawsuit then? If they're remaining anonymous, it's not going to be a criminal proceeding. In the United States, at least. We'll
see where it goes. I mean, it depends on whomever steps forward. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah. But I mean, if this goes to a lawsuit, then it's a civil case where they can remain anonymous.
If they can't remain anonymous, and if it's a choice between life or death, then we will not have them step forward. If it's not, it's always up to the survivor.
Now, you said you're not comfortable speaking about the evidence here. Can you say that you did see? Did you see any evidence yourself? If you can't tell us about that,
I'm not going to speak about.
And
that.
Are you confident, or from what your information that you're getting, is this a solid case from your experience working in this kind of particular field? Because I know there's still a lot of things up in the air. We still don't know a lot, but from your kind of understanding of how all this works, how do you see this case kind of?
I believe the
forward?
survivors that I serve. And I'll leave that there.
Do you trust the justice system if it goes forward?
It's the system that we have.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really matter whether or not I trust it. It's the system that we have.
Does this tend to have like a good
Of course, I have my own opinion on everything.
Right.
But I do everything legally and lawfully.
Yeah.
And that's how we'll do it. I wish that there was a different system, but I can't live constantly in utopia. I have to take action today.
The main challenge I have, first, I want to stress, there's a lot of people defending Andrew Tate, and by all means, I have not watched everything he's ever put out, but I have seen a portion of many different podcasts people have sent me. I don't take those with a lot of weight because out of context statements don't sway me. Seeing a 30-second or even a 4-minute clip of Andrew Tate talking about something I'll be like, okay, I'll consider that he said that. I'll have heard that he said that. But without listening to the full hour, I don't like people being like, I'll give you an example. I've had people come to me and they're like, did you hear what Dave Rubin said? And I'll be like, what did Dave Rubin say? And they'll be like, he said this thing. And then I'll be like, how do you know he said that? Someone posted a clip on Twitter. And I'll be like, come on, bro. They post clips of me out of context all the time. I don't know if I believe it. That being said, Andrew Tate tells this story frequently about how he had a bunch of women who loved him. And he said, I'm broke, come here, we're going to make money. And then he started a cam business. So there's a few questions. The first thing I'll say is, I understand why people are skeptical. We've not actually seen any evidence from Romania other than accusations. And to be honest, even the statements that you have so far didn't actually assert anything. It's just people saying they were survivors and they're looking for more people to come forward.
Sure.
So, I mean, that's the first step, I suppose. But for the time being, that's why the lawyers probably say allegedly, because we've not heard anything other than he convinced women to go and work for him, and that it was exploitation and illegitimate, that he was a lover boy, that he was telling them how much he loved them, come out, and then actually was just putting him into these situations. So those accusations are there. I guess people are saying outside of, I will say this, these anonymous statements, but also Vice put out a video that allegedly comes from witnesses. We have circumstantial evidence. The other thing I'll add to it is, I can also understand why people are skeptical on this, because we've not gotten any accountability from Epstein, despite the fact that guy got arrested, Maxwell was convicted. We know there were people flying on his plane. We know some of the people who were on his island, some of these names have been released, and there's been literally nothing done on it. But then Andrew Tate gets raided, so people are asking questions. Is it that Andrew Tate gained power in a way that was outside of the Epstein, group, and thus he's not protected?
I'm releasing my own statement later tonight. Might clear a little bit of that up.
Yeah.
My statement's a little different. My statements come straight at the throat, but it's a little long to read on your show, to be honest.
But Andrew Tate didn't donate to Democrats. Is that why he gets arrested? So I think there's a lot of people who are just like, we don't believe it, because if they really cared about trafficking, they'd have gone after this whole list. I mean, Luke named off a ton of people already who were implicated that they never went after. So this is why people are just like, I don't buy it. Andrew, I'm not saying I know. I don't know anything about Andrew Tate. Only a little bit.
Right.
But I can certainly understand why people are skeptical if you get a guy who comes out and tells people to break free from the machine, get away from the matrix, be masculine, and then they ban him from every platform, then arrest him.
He's never said he doesn't say anything that Luke doesn't say. Seriously, literally, it's not like he's reinventing the wheel. And I don't want to get too much into his, I have no opinion on him, and I'm going to let the court decide. I really will. And I'll go with that, whatever. But I mean, literally, it's not like he's coming out and saying anything that's super groundbreaking, or he's not Julian Assange.
Right.
You know what I mean? He's not Edward Snowden. You know what I mean? People act like Tate's saying something new or unique. It's stuff that people like Luke and I say on a daily basis, any day that ends in Y.
If he did what he's accused of doing, him and his brother, then he needs to be brought to justice.
Yeah.
But honestly, I understand why people find it hard to believe when there's zero accountability for the entire list of Epstein's clients, the one that we haven't seen. But I'm talking about, Bill Gates flying on his plane, Bill Clinton flying on his plane, things like that. And there's just no question. Don't talk about it. Get the F out. And then not to mention, you've got FTX, where they're going as light as possible on this guy. And obviously this guy's a financial related thing. But these people in the club, they get away with everything. So it very well may be that Andrew Tate did bad stuff, but he ain't in the club. And he's been speaking out against the club, so he's not protected.
Yeah. As we know, for many decades now, the federal government has been aiding and protecting some of the worst, atrocious, horrible behaviors. They've been working with big tech social media that also has been aiding and abetting it to the point where there's even victims coming forward and saying, hey, there's these photos, there's these videos of me being an underage child being hurt and abused here. Twitter looking at that, listening to the victim, still deciding, you know what, this doesn't violate our terms and policies. This is what happened here in the United States. Your tax dollars as an American went to aiding and protecting an international trafficking operation. We're off of the coast in the Virgin Islands in the United States. They literally had an island that they flew in powerful people and they procured small children to them. So obviously, this is a very important issue here. This is an issue that we can't forget. This is an issue that we need to fight for, since everything that usually happens in our mainline political system is protecting these individuals, and very rarely do we get any justice here. Now, when it comes to this particular case, I know you don't feel comfortable talking about some of the accusations or some of the evidence here. So I'm just trying to frame some questions so we get a kind of bigger understanding here.
Yeah.
If I could ask, did you know these victims beforehand? Did they come to the law firm? Can you tell us a little bit about your background with them? And did you talk to them? And from like 0 to 100, how much do you trust them?
So I don't want to give away. It's really hard for me right now, Luke. This is a little different than the John Doe 1, John Doe 2 Twitter lawsuit. I mean, once things are filed, then I have green light to go. Right now, I'm in limbo as a survivor advocate. I've been serving one of the survivors since this past summer. So I've been serving this individual on a frequent basis as their survivor advocate, giving direct service. Anyone that knows what a victim's advocate is or as a survivor advocate. So I've been working with this individual for quite some time. The other survivor is more recent. That's all I'm going to say about that right now. Just to I don't want to break any of their, I have to be very mindful of what I say because I don't want to give away any of their identities.
But from your experience, you 100% believe them?
I believe every survivor that I serve. But I also do my part in explaining due diligence. I do my due diligence and explaining due process.
Yeah, because some people are going to, take that question and are saying, well, if you believe everyone, how do we know if someone's not, using this situation for their own personal benefit?
And I could see that. Well, number one, they don't get any money from me. And they don't get, as you can see, they're not even coming out their full name yet. By the way, these two survivors probably will. We just need to make sure that they're safe. You have to understand, we didn't necessarily know that the Romanian law enforcement was going to move ahead with what they did right then. So it's putting the other survivors that have been building their case globally for a while. We're all in like hyper mode, trying to not catch up, but sort of catch up.
And I want to kind of sorry, go ahead.
Why do you call them survivors? Why is that the terminology?
Because I'm a survivor advocate.
No, but what does survivor mean? Is there
survivor of abuse or trauma?
Does that mean that there's a high propensity, like the end result of the trauma or abuse is to kill them?
That's a really good point, Tim. I believe that anytime someone faces trauma in this way, sexual assault, domestic violence, human trafficking, that there is a high potential, especially in children, of their life to end right then and there. You never know how violent it's going to get. And it's funny. I think sometimes people think I'm like kind of a nut job because I'm so grateful to be alive all the time. I don't think they understand what I've fully been through. Anyone that's survived that type of trauma is very grateful to be alive because sometimes I think about the times I could have died and I'm shocked that I didn't. So yes, they survived. They have survived the trauma. In legal terms, you say victim.
Right. Yeah. I think a lot of people take issue with the term survivor because survivor is like, you survived a building collapse, you survived a murder attempt, or you survived war. Yeah. And survive means to live, like I suppose I would define it as living through something which may have taken your life. You survived. You're a survivor of a shipwreck. So I guess the question is, and I'm not saying it's not true, for a lot of these women, I could imagine that they do end up dead, especially when it comes to the more serious international trafficking. Yeah. They get forced onto drugs, onto opiates because it'll make them more manageable, and then many of them do die from this. My concern is, I wouldn't say based on the accusations on the Andrew Tate thing, it's probably iffy. I think the issue is a lot of leftists, a lot of woke people will call themselves survivors when it's like someone said nasty things to them or like they got into a fight in the street. You know what I mean? I
don't like the word victim per se though, because victim means you're staying there. So I see
what you're saying. Like you don't want to be a victim.
Language. Oh, I hate it when people call me a victim. That's one of my main complaints. Sometimes corporate press or other people on Twitter will say, "Oh, she's a victim. She's a victim." I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor. So I survived, and I don't want to stay in victim mentality, and I don't want to live there, and I've chosen not to. So what other word would I say? I'm someone who has experienced, survivor is a shorthand for an individual who has experienced that specific trauma.
This is interesting.
Yeah.
We don't want to be victims. We don't want to live in victimhood. That's part of the problem with wokeness. everything makes them a victim. So I can certainly understand someone saying, no, I'm not a victim, I'm a survivor. Then you get people on the right who are like, you didn't survive, you weren't going to die. You know what I mean? So it's like, I agree. I wouldn't want to say victim either, because you don't want to put yourself in a weakened state. You want to rise above and move forward with it, right?
Yeah, I guess people are just asking, what is the nuance here? Is this related to kind of, because abuse takes many forms. Is this psychological abuse? Is this being a lover boy? Or is this, running a human trafficking operation where you're procuring children or small people? What kind of degrees are we talking about here? I think that's what a lot of people are asking.
Sure.
We're trying to find out.
Let's break something down really quickly. I don't hate the term lover boy, but I kind of do. Lover boy is almost like a slang for the coercive. Human trafficking is force, fraud, or coercion for the sale of labor or sex. Lover boy would fall under the coercive aspect. If you are coerced into sex or labor trafficking, that would be sort of what the lover boy. The reason why I don't prefer lover boy is because women can be traffickers. So that, to me, that's not a good. I like to say coerced. If individuals were coerced into sexual exploitation, that's what. And I am a survivor of a coercive relationship too, unfortunately.
I ran a poll, and we have about 7,300 votes and climbing. Do you think Andrew Tate is guilty? 84% said no.
Okay. I mean, that's fine. I mean, even the survivors said, just let it, let the courts do their thing. Even one of the survivors said that in their statement. But, I will say this. To those who want to support survivors, please do during this time, whether it be myself, the survivors of Epstein Maxwell, or the alleged survivors of Tate. Please do, because their supporters are very loud. The bots are very loud. And I think it would be very helpful if you're a supporter of survivors if you speak out.
Yeah.
I think the constant
ahead.
skepticism like this, though, is maybe a consequence of the oversaturation of false allegations from like a lot of the last few years. And like I was telling people, when those were happening, like the consequence of this is going to be when people do step forward, no one's going to believe it anymore.
This is a tale as old as time. People haven't believed survivors since they started stepping forward, and they've only recently said, my best friend and I.
Let me just say real quick. When Alex Jones was talking about Epstein, he was called crazy and a conspiracy theorist.
For sure.
And now 10, 12, 13, however long it's been, all of a sudden it's like, well, of course. Whip out the Alex Jones was right jars. Look, man, I'll put it this way. I understand a lot of people like Andrew Tate, and they probably do because he's telling them to step up, push back against the machine. And he's had several videos that we've praised, notably where he said, whether I really love it. He says, whether I'm happy or unhappy is irrelevant. If I wake up unhappy, I gotta do the exact same thing I would do if I was happy. And I'm like, that's a really good point. He had another video where he said, you gotta keep working, you can't stop. Rocket ship going to the moon doesn't stop halfway to chill out. No, it loses momentum and it falls. You gotta keep going. People hear those messages, they're positive messages. He says, don't abide by the machine. Break free from the matrix. Take the red pill. Get away from this.
He hasn't said anything that we haven't all been saying for literally ever. This is not new or groundbreaking information. He's charismatic. He's not bad looking, and he built a platform.
And that works for a lot of people.
I mean, yeah, sure, it's great. And I'm not even mad that there's somebody out there saying it. That's the vibe. I like that information as well. I like that information.
But what we said, earlier this week is, I will care about this when they actually go after Epstein and Maxwell's client list.
No,
because this is
Tim,
to me,
that's ridiculous.
I don't think so.
No.
Epstein,
you can do more than one thing at once, and you could care about more than one set of survivors or potential crimes at once.
I agree, but what we're seeing here is this massive international and corporate press effort going after this guy and his brother.
Sure.
While they have protected, along with the government, one of the most egregious trafficking rings we have ever seen in the history of this planet.
And I believe that the survivors of Epstein deserve justice as well, and I believe that all co-conspirators in the Epstein case should be held accountable as well.
And so
I've served.
They're skipping over him. I'm sorry. I'm not going to give them an inch because they're skipping over Epstein and Maxwell.
What you're not understanding is that sometimes there is a trickle effect. There are still things happening with the Epstein case, and I want to remind everyone out there watching, every time you think that the Epstein case is done, more happens, and there's only so much that the survivors can do, and there's only so much that there's only so much that the survivors can do, but they are still fighting. Trust me. That is nowhere near done. You can't equate one case for another case. They're two totally different cases. So let's hopefully push for justice with the Epstein-Maxwell case, and that all co-conspirators are held accountable. But also, you can care about another case and hope that if justice needs to be received.
If we could get a little bit of clarification here, I also want to talk about the Vice piece a little bit here, but we know what was happening with Epstein to a certain level, which was really, really bad.
Yeah.
Outside of the legal perspective, what do you think was happening here with the Tate brothers? What do you think they were doing? How were they running their operation? What was really going on here from your perspective?
I'm not going to speak about that.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm very
No.
limited.
I know. Just so people understand the level of like, hey, what Epstein was doing was extremely horrible and bad, right?
I will say
taking
this.
small children that were like 9 years old and then bringing them onto islands to have other powerful people fly in, do whatever they want. That's really bad. So how bad, from your perspective? I know you don't have to answer it, but how bad is that related to Tate's?
Abuse isn't like because every human's different. Abuse can affect an individual differently. So it's not like there's a word I want to use right now, but I can't. I just want to keep the show clean. Like, it's not a tit for tat game when it comes to abuse. It's not like one abuse is worse than one abuse. I've met survivors who were sexually assaulted one time, and it's harder on them. That one abuse is harder on them than survivors who have been sexually abused, locked up, chained for a very long time. It doesn't. So we don't play a tit for tat game when it comes to abuse. If you're abused, you're abused. So why don't we just we'll let everything happen the way it's supposed to, legally and lawfully, and I'm asking, and I get what you're saying, Tim, but there's a reason. I'm not part of the machine. I don't even work for Nicosi, who's representing the case. I'm not part of the machine. So if I'm sitting here saying I'm serving two of the survivors, in fact, I've broken bread with some of the people that are really super cool with Tate. So I'm not part of the machine. So I guess the real question is, are folks going to believe like, okay, Liza's part of this big conspiracy also? I'm not part of the corporate press. In fact, quick reminder to everyone at home, I just went through my dregs where I've been getting dragged by the corporate press left and right.
Before we move on to the next story, I wanted to talk about this Vice report that just also recently came out, because they detailed how 7 years ago he was also accused of sexual assault and physical abuse in the United Kingdom. But from that case, the UK authorities actually declined to prosecute him, and Tate released a statement about this, specifically through his lawyer while in Romanian custody, saying specifically that the individuals accusing him were trying to go after money, saying, quote, "The police understood after the investigation that I am innocent, and the police found messages from the girls' phones where they were talking between themselves and planning to lie about me," end quote. That's what Andrew Tate said, according to the response of this Vice report that specifically detailed how he punched one girl in the arm and allegedly forced himself on another girl in a shower from one of the girls who was seeing it. The woman also decided to remain anonymous here, but this Vice report is, of course, something that everyone is talking about and saying this is not the first time he's being accused of something like this as well. Did you see that Vice report?
I did.
And
actually, if the survivors out there are listening that step forward in that, I appreciate your bravery, and hopefully, I hope you get some justice as well. If it's, I really appreciate your bravery. And actually, I want to say something else. I'm sorry for the way that the internet dragged you. And I've been there and it sucks, and keep going. Keep going. And actually reach out to Nicosi Law as well, because we can connect you with some of the survivors.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.